promoted the call this morning. Steve Bannon, we got a lot of people on coming into Stern American. Had a little problem with the link for Zoom today, so we apologize. Some of the people, we had to send them over to Stern American Rumble, which it's on there live. We have 142 podcasters that'll be streaming it today, tomorrow, and Saturday. Plus Patriot TV will be on the weekend, Lindell TV on the weekend. It's right now on Stern American Rumble. If you go to Stern American X, and sign up, a lot of information will be come up there because people call me, text me, but we'll be putting a lot of information on that. So you want to get on that. So without further discussion, we have one of the finest patriotic people. He was on 8 Hours this weekend with Tina Peters talking about her. She wasn't on, she's in jail. But Dr. Frank has been all over the country. Most of the people on here know him. I want to thank him for everything he does in this country. I know he gets a little bit around a little bit more than I do. I have to just stay on TV. So thank you so much for everything you've done. And the floor is all yours.
Well, thank you. Yes, all day Saturday, I was on a letmytinago.us live podcast. It went 8 hours. And what we did on that podcast is we started the day by with opening and prayer. And then we kind of went through the timeline of Tina Peters' experience. And of course, since I'm the one at the very beginning of that, he opened with me, and I kind of gave a history of how I met her, how we arranged to get the forensic backups of her machines and all that stuff. We kind of went through all those steps, and then we brought it up to the cyber symposium. And when she joined us there, and I needed to stay all day long because I was involved in almost every step of her journey. I was at her sentencing hearing, and so they put that video up as well. So that's why we did that. And we're trying to do is bring attention to the fact that she's a patriot and she's in jail, just like the J6ers are patriots and they're in jail. And it doesn't make sense. It's not fair to her. It's a violation of her constitutional rights, as well as we the people. There are all kinds of issues. Our government is behaving tyrannically towards us. She happens to be one of the worst places in the country there in Colorado. And so that's why we were bringing attention to it. I didn't organize it. They invited me in, but Mark Cook was the organizer, and he said, hey, Doug, I need you back on the next issue ones as well. So I think it's part 1 of 4 parts. letmytinago.us, exactly. And they had a little trouble on Saturday with their technical. Sounds familiar, huh, Steve? And so the audio was a little choppy at the beginning. So if you go to watch and it's still choppy, wait a day or two. I think they're going to fix it and you'll get a good, clean hearing. But anyway, that's what that was all about. And I think that is what inspired you to contact me, Steve, and have me come on today. So I'm glad to be here. I've been doing a lot of work since the election, a lot of work, and people don't understand what happened in the election. And everybody's like, hooray, hooray, Trump won. Absolutely. We're all delighted that he won. And it's delightful watching him with that pen, and his machete basically going through the government and honoring his campaign promises. Dude, the guy is on fire. I love it. But everything he's doing, executive orders, okay? That means everything that he's doing can be undone by the next administration. So even though it's great to watch and we're all having a great time, the problem is our state legislatures are not on board. I've met with them in person, as I've been all over the country, and our legislators are not on board. I saw Dan Schultz on here a minute ago, and the Precinct Project is something that I've been promoting as well around the country. We need that sort of grassroots movement from the bottom. We've got Trump coming down with his wrecking ball and his machete, and it's wonderful. He's coming down from the top. But everything that he's doing can just quickly be undone unless we build the infrastructure underneath it. So that's what I've been doing. I'm about to go on tour again. For the last 4 years, I was on the road almost continuously. I don't charge for any of my events. So if you guys want to get me set up, just contact me. My email is drdouglas, Douglas, G like George, Frank, Dr. Douglas G. Frank at outlook.com. And my goal when I come to these counties is I speak in the evenings and they pass a hat and that covers my hotel and plane tickets and things. But that what we're really doing is we're building a national infrastructure. And we need to change the way you think about this, okay? Most of the things that people are doing right now to think that they're doing election integrity are impotent. They will have no effect whatsoever. For example, all this talk about how Pennsylvania was saved by Scott Pressler's work, where he was like doing all the registration and ballot harvesting and all that. You know, the numbers are now in. He registered fewer people than the prior two elections, okay? And the turnout only barely went up in that state. So all that work barely made an effect. And last March, I'm a mathematician, I'm a scientist, I follow the data. In March of 2024, I did the calculation and I publicized it everywhere. And I told everybody, we're not going to win this election by chasing ballots, by doing registration. We're not going to win by cleaning voter rolls. We're not going to win by any of those ways. And I showed with the numbers that the most we'd be able to increase Trump's turnout in 2024 would be 3%. And guess what it was? On the nose, 3%. And I've got graphs for the whole country. I've got discussions of that already out on my YouTube and Rumble channels. The reason when Trump is in office, I mean, besides it being a miracle, thank God it's a miracle, I think we've been given a temporary reprieve. We were lucky that the Democrats didn't turn out their base. The Democrat vote went down in every state in the country, okay? Well, nearly every state. We didn't win the election. Trump didn't win the election. Trump essentially got the same thing he got before. It went up a few percent. The Democrat turnout was way the heck down. And I've got all the graphs to show that. I've got all the data to show you that. And so, in other words, we didn't win the election. We held our own. The Democrats lost the election. And I've graphed all the trends and showed all the situations. We have 1 year to fix this because I think we're going to lose the midterms. I think we're going to lose in 2028 unless we take advantage of this reprieve we have right now. We have got a year before I want to come back to that, the work we did in Philadelphia. I want to talk about that. I don't think that is what you think it is, because right now in the state of Pennsylvania, more than 30 NGOs have access to your voter rolls, and they can put in as many voters as they want, whenever they want, and they can stuff ballots for them whenever they want. So the reason we won in 2024 is because Trump held his own, went up a little bit, but the Democrats were unable to cheat nearly as much as they were before. Also, the Kamala couldn't even turn out her own base. So the way I like putting this is we didn't win the election. The Democrats lost it. They didn't have their act together. I've got all the data to back this up. So anybody who's putting their emphasis into cleaning the voter rolls, anybody's putting their emphasis in thinking we're going to increase the turnout, you're barking up the wrong trees, guys. We have to secure our elections. And the only way to secure your elections is for you to take back local control of them, where you can have transparency, you can control the voter rolls. Right now across the country, there isn't a single state. I mean, in every single state, the voter rolls are controlled at a central level. Pennsylvania is one of the worst in the country. We have all the data. We have the logs from your state proving that your NGOs are logging in and adding voters to the voter rolls and then stuffing ballots for them. So you can do all the work you want, but if you don't address that cheat mechanism, we're going to lose. Not to mention the fact that the trends are all against us, and I've graphed all that out as well. We're in huge trouble. We have a narrow window, and you guys are not idiots. Anybody on this call knows what I'm talking about. The elections are decided in the primaries, not the general. Who we get to win the primary matters, and that's a year from now. So we need control of our elections. And so what I've been doing, spending my time, is I've been working with teams around the country. And I'm building infrastructure. And the purpose of the infrastructure is to teach people how to find fraud so that they can take back local control of the elections. Because once you have fraud in your hand, now you have legal leverage, you have court of public opinion leverage, you have all sorts of leverage. I just want, and I don't have a lot of time, but I just wanted to tell you something that we're on right now, really hot. The Right. We have now, I mean, we've got a lot of experience now, and I've got teams all over. I mean, think about this. 4 years ago, we didn't know what we were doing. Now I have teams all over the country that are auditing the voter rolls. They're auditing the elections afterwards. They're making sure that every ballot that came in came from who we think it came in, and we're finding all kinds of ballots that are fraudulent in this last election, all over the place. So we've really come a long way. In fact, I just give you a short advertisement. Monday night, I'm going to give an hour-long talk on the Cause of America call. I'm going to teach people the principles of auditing your voter rolls. I'm going to teach people how to do that. But in the meantime, I've been doing all around the country. I just want to share something recently that happened. I'm not going to tell you how yet because we can't reveal some of our sources, but we know how to find out who is a citizen or not in our rolls. And so what we do is we've been taking the rolls and we've been cross-referencing with the citizen list. And guess what? We're finding all sorts of non-citizens that are voting. So, but except that when we then knock on the door of the non-citizen, they didn't vote. Somebody used their name to stuff a ballot. Okay. So that's like easy to do in Pennsylvania because the NGOs all have access to your voter rolls. So we have lots of ways of doing this audit. This is the way we can prove that we're not just a bunch of blowhards, that we're not just screaming bloody murder and saying, oh, we want our elections back. No, we can show that the actual fraud is actually happening. And then once you have that, you can show that's a violation of your constitutional rights. And once it's a violation, and the people will wake up. But one of the things in my 7 steps, I have a strategy I call the 7 steps for taking back our elections, is I tell people, look, you can have all the evidence in the world, but you're not going to win without a movement. And that's why calls like this are important. We're building a national movement, but we need to focus on the right things. Too many of us are doing the wrong things, and I call those hamster wheels. And what do I mean by a wrong thing? I mean, am I Mr. Wise Man? I'm the only person who knows anything? Of course not. But too many people are doing things that have no net effect. For example, in Pennsylvania, since that came up, I was up in Mercer County recently. A patriot came up to me and he says, Dr. Frank, we cleaned our voter rolls. I removed 600 people from the voter rolls. I'm like, way to go. Good work. When did you do that? 3 months ago. Okay, well, let's download your rolls today. So we downloaded the rolls. Guess what? His voter rolls were the 600 people that were removed. They're already new people in, and they even had more people in the voter rolls than before he cleaned them. So all this work to clean voter rolls is the wrong thing for you to spending your time on. What you need to be doing is getting control, local control of your voter rolls so that this can't happen. Because it's like the starting point. It's the fuel for all the fraud. You can stuff as many ballots as you want, but you got to have names to assign to them. And that's what this is all about. So I could go on and on, but I knew I only had a few minutes today. So I'm trying to stay focused. So what I've been doing is trying to build infrastructure around the country. And that takes, I've learned it doesn't work by Zoom. You got to be in person. So we're building those groups. I'm recently on the board of Audit Vote PA in Pennsylvania. So we've been using it kind of as a prototype for around the country. We divided the state up into sections, and then we're building war councils in each of those sections. Let me tell you what I mean by a war council. So you have to come into this with the right mindset. Our country is at war. We're in a 5th generation war, as General Flynn is always saying. In warfare, you don't fight warfare as a bunch of individuals. If we're at war and I pick up my gun and I run at the enemy, we lose. If we're in a war, we form a war council. We get the generals and the strategists and the intelligence and infrastructure, and we get that together. We make a plan, and then we implement the plan. So let's say we're in World War II. Are we going to attack Germany? Are we going to attack Berlin the first day? Of course not. That's too big of a jump. We want to get to Normandy, but to get to Normandy, we got to have infrastructure. We got to have planning. We got to have soldiers. We have to have ammunition. We have to have intelligence. We have to have strategy. We have to have all these different
2 minutes, Dr. Frank. 2 minutes, Dr. Frank.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Raj. So that's what we're doing. We're building war councils in each part of the country because the regions are different, and there are different election laws, there are different election strategies, there are nuances. Some places you have good sheriffs, some places you don't. Some places you have lots of involvement of your citizens, some places you don't. So there's different strategies, different places, just like if we were fighting a war, because guess what? We are fighting a war. So you got to get organized. There are too many people out there that are thinking that they're going to win in the courts. They're thinking they're going to win by cleaning the voter rolls. They're thinking they're winning by they think they can reform the system. No, you have to take back the system. It has to be under your eyeballs, not the state eyeballs. How about if I start right there?
How
Excellent,
about
Dr. Frank. Good,
No.
good, Steve.
let them know where they can reach you, Dr. Frank?
Say that again.
Let them know how they can reach you.
Oh, my email, drdouglasgfrank@outlook.com. I'll type it in the text. Dr. Douglas, G like George, Frank @outlook.com. By the way, I'm going to be at CPAC next week with Mike. That's his big announcement of Lindell TV and all that stuff. I'm going to be there in his booth. So if anybody wants to come by and corner me and schedule me to come in, I don't charge. Hey, I see Mark Cook under me. If anybody wants to schedule, I'm available. Mm-hmm.
Very much. Mark Cook, you're up.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, everyone. So I'm the founder of handcountroadshow.org, and I decided to go out a couple years ago and travel county by county throughout the states of this country to figure out what's actually going on the ground, and then help educate the citizens in that county so they could understand what the battlefield looks like and what they're seeing, and help align what they're seeing with the mechanics of this election manipulation system, which is actually an election illusion system, to make sure that they put their efforts in the right direction. So if you go to handcountroadshow.org and you click the big red button, I've put together a framework for the solution of this. Now, a lot of us in election reform or election integrity, which election integrity really should be now election reform, are coming up with our plans. What we need to do is we need to make sure no one forgets anything. We need to make sure everyone's looking at everyone's plans and incorporating all the best things from each plan into one unified strategy going forward, or at least as close to the same strategy, because we want to make sure we're all rowing in the same direction so we don't keep pulling everyone in different directions. So if you click on that big red button, you'll get there, and I'll just go ahead and read the scope here. At the heart of the democratic governance lies the voting system, a mechanism designed to reflect the collective will of the people. For this system to truly serve its purpose, it's got to be so simple and transparent that every citizen, regardless of their background, education, or technological literacy, can not only participate in the election, but also understand and verify each step of the process. That's critical. So the people that are going around pushing, blockchain voting or more computers and more technology at this are going the wrong direction. They are not going to produce a system that is simple and transparent and understandable by every American citizen that relies on it to determine their will. We can't use technology to create complexity. We can't use technology to create opacity. We need to only use technology to create transparency to an existing system that must be able to stand on its own without the use of technology. So the simplicity and transparency are not just about ease of use, they're fundamental to ensuring equal access to the electoral process, and that includes verifying it. In the mechanics of the voting system, are shrouded in complexity or lack transparency, trust in the outcome diminishes, which erodes the foundation of our republic. At its essence, and voting involves citizens marking choices on a paper, followed by a straightforward count of the marks. The process doesn't necessitate elaborate or costly technology. Instead, it demands clarity, accessibility, and the ability for public oversight, 100% oversight. So for American citizens to genuinely reclaim their electoral process, we have to immediate and comprehensive reforms are imperative. So for voter registration, real simple. We got to bring voter registration back to the counties and the counties only. Sole control of the voter registrations must be put in the hands of our county officials. They need to still provide that information in a read-only digital fashion so all other counties can access that information and compare their rolls against every other counties to ensure that there are no double and triple and quadruple voters. We need to have verified citizen and residency checks there at that time in the county before someone is eligible to register to vote. And that registration must be done on paper, verified witness signature, ideally notarized by the county officials that are there that should notarize that at no charge for election purposes. And that way we have notarized pieces of paper with verified signatures for the voter registration cards stored by precinct at the county building. And then fast forward, when we have the election come up, that stack of precinct cards goes straight out to the precinct, and they use those cards to verify against, of course, their paper poll book, which is printed out from the cards beforehand and verified with the signatures that the citizens put on the paper poll book, because then we have two verified signatures that are being compared instead of two mystery signatures that we really don't know who actually signed. In addition to that, each county cross-references their list against the other counties. And I suggest this: a nationwide unique voter number assigned to each registered voter. And that unique number stays with you no matter where you go, no matter what county you go to, no matter what state you move to. That voter number is yours forever. And some people say, why don't we use social security numbers? Well, we can't use social security because it's tied to too many financial instruments. Therefore, it works just like a social security number, but is a unique voter number. We have a national clearinghouse, probably run by the EAC. It is just a clearinghouse of voter numbers, and that's it. And that goes back, and your record stays with that voter number forever, no matter what state it moves to. So then absentee ballots, obviously we can't have mass mail-in absentee ballots. We need to restrict it to only as needed, with proof provided and accepted for those that absolutely need it. Because when you create absentee ballots, you now create an abuse vector in the system. And when you create an abuse vector in the system so that people can't drive a freight train through it, you need to include additional levels of verification to compensate for the abuse you've just created within the system. Then on election day, it's real simple. Precinct-based voting, 15 or 100 less population. The county size don't matter, because then you'll just have more precincts. The precincts are 1,500 or less, and trust me, they need to be 1,500 or less in order to hand count in a reasonable time, about 4 hours at most, depending on the complexity of the ballot. We get results that night. And my suggestion, and I've done this many times for real elections now, is when the ballots come to the table, they get batched, they get sent through a scanner, which makes a PDF image of every single ballot. Then they go on the same table, a few inches away, they get hand tabulated underneath another camera, a video camera. And so at the end of this election, what we have is we have triple verification. Not only do we have the citizens, the Democrat and Republican teams that are there, 2 talliers, 2 callers, and a witness, and duplicated efforts right there, but then we have ballot images and video of the entire process, and all of that is put online for everyone to see. So there's no more questions about the election. If you're curious, you don't think your election was counted properly, great. You just go to the county website, pull down all the ballots, download all the ballot images yourself, and you can recount the whole thing. All the tally sheets are there, all the paperwork with signatures of people, the judges that are actually at the precinct that are certifying that what they did at the precinct is correct, their signatures right there. So you have instant accountability and chain of custody all the way through from start to finish. And if you go to openelectionrecords.org, again, that's openelectionrecords.org, and click on Searcy County, you can see Searcy County's primary of 2024 right there with the images, the video, the whole thing, just like we could have it for every single county in this country. So then in election night, you count ballots where they're cast, counted where cast. Immediately when the polls close, that's when the box is opened, and that's when you start counting the ballots. And that's Searcy County, Arkansas. It's the only one on openelectionrecords.org. So openelectionrecords.org, go to that site. You can see what this could look like across the whole country. You count them where they're cast, just like I went over. And then you take that copy of the total sheet for that precinct that goes on the outside of the building. And then anyone that pulls up the results from the county website, they can walk down to that precinct building and they can hold their phone up right next to that piece of paper and make sure what's showing up on the website is exactly what's showing up on the piece of paper outside the same building that they voted at. Very, very simple. And everything is reported at precinct level. All the precinct level results are reported. We are all smart enough to add up precinct to get to our county, and counties to get to our state, and state to get to our federal results. But we cannot just trust blindly other people adding them up for us. It's really simple. Precinct level discrete results. That avoids all kinds of potential manipulation. And then auditing, what we do after those elections is we have our kids, 6th through 12th grade, they break up into groups after every election. They pull up their precincts, ballots, and they get a little refresher on what elections are and what this country is and how elections work. And our kids, the second half of that day, they break up into groups, they download the ballots in their precinct, and our kids recount the elections for their parents. And they do this in class after every election. So we end up teaching them 6 years. Every student learns this stuff. And then by the time they graduate high school, they are voting age. So darn right, they're going to go register to vote. Darn right, they're going to vote. And we don't have to worry about looking for election workers or training them, because if our kids have done this 6 years straight, they're going to be beating down the door to actually do this. And every year we get a new fresh set of students that have been trained. So we will have a constant supply of people to verify the results of our elections. And then after our kids do it for that day after the election, we open it up to the entire country. We put out a bounty, $50 check from the county for anyone that finds a mistake in the elections. You get a check sent right to you if you're the first person to find that mistake. And you end up crowdsourcing the audit. So we will have every one of our elections will be audited 1,000 times over. There will never be a mistake because everything will be totally transparent. In fact, our election officials will turn into election transparency agents to ensure everything's transparent. And I'm done. Thank you.
How do they reach you, Mark?
You can reach me at handcountroadshow.org. Click on the contact button and you can send me a message. I'll give you everyone my phone number. And if someone could type this in the chat, that'd be great. It's 303-990-2660. Again, that's 303-990-2660. Thank you, Val. Call me, text me. That's the best way to get a hold of me. I'm going to be hitting the road in a couple of months, and I'm going to be traveling the western part of the country. And then after that year, it's going to be a year doing the western states. I'm going to do a year in the eastern states, and I'm going to help everyone learn how to do this process. I'm going to help with legislation so everyone knows what target we need to hit. We have to reclaim elections. We got to move them back to the precinct. Thank you all. I hope I nailed that in 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Raj,
Thank you,
there?
guys.
Yes, our next speaker is ready. Merissa is ready. Oh, go ahead, Steve. Go ahead, Steve.
Oh, you want to put it on the air here? Dan Schultz is on. I want everybody to go out and get his book if you haven't. Go to www.precinctstrategy.com. That is the way we started here 2.5 years ago, and we've added the election integrity to that. So please take a look at it, take a picture. Dan has worked 14 years on this with Steve Bannon and many other people. They're doing a fantastic job. We're going to have him on one of the shows when he wants to come on. He talks about it much better than I do. Okay, Merissa, you're up. She's from Arizona. She's going to be talking about some of the fraud in Arizona. Go ahead, Merissa.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Election integrity is the most important civil rights issue of our lifetime. I think that is the number one thing that we need to focus on. So I'm so excited that all of you are here today. And I want to thank the previous speakers that we've had. My name is Merissa Hamilton. I have been, I think, I'm not sure if I'm on the screen right now, Steve, or not.
You are. We can see you.
Got it. I have been working on election integrity since 2018. Prior to that, I was in the supply chain and I focused on master data management. I was responsible for the master data of a multi-billion food service company. And then I went and moved on into technology and helped some of our largest supply chain companies in America and even across the globe to make sure that they had proper traceability and chain of custody. And so that's what piqued my interest when it came to election integrity. In 2018, I had left my career for a little while and went to work for my city councilman doing constituent services because I wanted to see how government really works, how government really operates behind the scenes and what we need to do to fix all the problems that are happening. And at that time, I wasn't entirely focused on election integrity, but there was an opportunity that came up to work for the Secretary of State's office and the Recorder's office, the Maricopa County Recorder's office, to do a process called duplication and adjudication. And that is where I got to see on the inside how elections operate. And I became extremely alarmed. If you remember, there was a lot of conversation from the left about how they didn't trust our machines, et cetera, et cetera. But On the conservative side, no one really had looked at that yet. And in that position, what I did is the ballots that would not be able to get read by the machine, they would get put up on a screen. The software is called Runbeck. And then our job would be to duplicate that ballot exactly how that voter voted. And it was myself as a Republican and then a Democrat that was sitting side by side with me. And we had to agree as to what the voter voted. What I noticed was that there's an algorithm in the machine, and it still exists today, where it would suggest to that team how the voter voted. But several times, I remember it was like 3 or 5 out of 7 or 9 times, the machine would suggest the wrong vote. And every time it did that, it would suggest it in favor of the Democrats. And so my background in technology alarmed me immediately, because that's not a glitch. That's something happening by design. And so I testified at the Maricopa County Recorders or the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors election certification meeting. And that was the last time the Board of Supervisors ever allowed anyone to speak at an election certification meeting until just recently. And then in response to that, at the time, the Democrat Maricopa County Recorder was Adrian Fontes. I'm a survivor of domestic violence, and he sent my former abuser's ballot to my house and all of his election mail to my house. And his office told me that the only way they would correct it is if I called my former abuser, who tried to kill me several times, to fix it. Well, spurning a woman is the best way to make sure that she's going to be on top of the shenanigans that you're pulling. And since then, I have been dedicated to fighting election integrity, because I didn't think that was right. And I knew what I saw was wrong. Since then, I have been on tours at Runbeck, and I have found that it is indeed true that they do have an algorithm that does suggest to the team doing the duplication what the voter's intent was. And I think that's wrong. I think that should be changed. It hasn't yet. But going back to what Dr. Frank talked about, I want to mention that what we have successfully done since then is we flipped Maricopa County. If you remember, we had a fake Republican that was previously the Maricopa County Recorder, and he was a never Trumper. He even created a PAC to go against MAGA candidates, and he falsely sued Kari Lake for defamation. I worked with Kari Lake under her organization Save Arizona. It was very important work that we were doing in that avenue, and that lawsuit was launched being funded by the radical left. And so I worked extremely hard, because Stephen had promised all of us that he would secure our elections. He never did. I can thankfully say today that the grassroots organized together, and we fired him in the last election. Our new recorder, Justin Heap, is incredible. He is pro-MAGA, and he was served on the Election Integrity Committee at the House in the Arizona legislature. And already he's making a huge difference. He's cleaned off 242,000 inactive voters that should have never been on the voter rolls in the first place. He's changed our signature verification process so we can now have observers. He's reorganized his office. So the previous recorder, he had a censorship and surveillance operation in place that he did with the IT department and with the communications department, in concert with the Board of Supervisors, the Secretary of State, the governor's office, and Biden's CISA, or some people call it CISA, federal government entity. Their plan was to create the censorship department everywhere to cancel us on social media, so we couldn't speak the truth about what's happening in our election operations. Well, in the recorder's office, that has now been disbanded. And instead, those resources have been shifted to cleaning up our voter rolls, to securing our elections, to fixing the things that the past bad recorders left behind. So I firmly agree. You need to, if you don't have someone that's on your side running your county elections, you need to make sure that you can change that race and recruit someone that can win, and then fight like hell to make sure that they get over the finish line. I also want to thank organizations like Turning Point Action and Scott Pressler, because they came down and they taught us about how to do things like voter registration. They taught us how to do ballot chasing, and all of those efforts all combined is what made the biggest difference. I also worked with America First Legal and launched several lawsuits, some of them that are still in progress. And those were to stop non-citizens from being able to access a ballot. And fortunately, we've had a couple of counties in Arizona that have settled with us and are working with DHS to clean their voter rolls and make sure only citizens are registered to vote in their respective counties. So I want to talk a little bit about where it's at now and what we need to do. So one, we have in Arizona a Democrat radical left governor, Katie Hobbs, who I also don't really think she won her election because the shenanigans that specifically happened in Maricopa County. But she blocks a lot of our election integrity bills that move through. Fortunately, we do have good leadership, both in the Arizona House and Senate, to drive good bills through. And so far, all of the bad bills that have come through, like things to eliminate the Electoral College, they have been blocked. So where do we go from here? Well, one of the most important things that's happening right now is that the legislature is pushing bills to go directly to the ballot so it bypasses the governor's desk. And this way the voters can vote on it in the next election. Another really important thing that we're doing is we're fighting in Maricopa County to make sure the recorder has all of the resources that he needs. And this is a big fight that we have right now against the chairman of the Board of Supervisors. His name is Thomas Galvin. He was friends with Stephen Richer, who's the previous Maricopa County recorder. And just to be clear, he has also been working with Mark Elias, the former recorder. He's now on his board. And so Thomas Galvin has been working to block the current recorder from being able to have the resources that he needs. And so I highly recommend you go to maricopa.gov and scroll down to the bottom and see Thomas Galvin and send him a friendly message and tell him we need recorder Justin Heap to have all the resources that he needs to make sure we secure our elections. Arizona was the last to know who won president in the last election. We have been the laughing stock for way too long. We now have the staff in there to fix the problems. There's so many problems with our voter rolls. We don't even have enough time to get into it. But we're working hard to make sure that we're getting Recorder Heap the IT resources he needs to clean those voter rolls, fix the system, stop the maladministration coming from the Secretary of State's office, stop the maladministration happening in our elections department, and secure Maricopa County once and for all. And once we get that next piece done, I'm happy to teach all of you what we did to fix our elections in Maricopa County. Until then, if you want to reach out to me to learn how to secure flip your local county jurisdiction, I'm happy to help with that and show you what we did to do it. We actually primarily did it with 501c3 money, just educating the voters, and didn't tell the voters how to vote, but they wanted election integrity, and that's how we did it. So if you want to find me, go to on Twitter, on X, at EasyAZ.org. EasyAZ.org, or my personal profile is MerissaHamilton.com. That's MERISSA Hamilton, and you'll find me there on X. And then our website is EasyAZ.org, and we're so excited for all the hard work all of you are doing around the country.
Thank you very much. Just like to report that Dan's Smeriglio, voice of the people USA.org, has reported 5 million people on his listeners on his radio channel worldwide, probably about 59 countries. Also, Raj, can you give me the screen a second?
Yep, you're on the screen. Go ahead.
All right. So if you could put back your screen up there to show in the background. So, all right, we can see it here. So our next election security election meeting will be at an event on March the 3rd. This is going to be a Trump International. It'll be a golf tournament. While they're playing golf, we will have an election security place live. But what's going to be different about this one, I am bringing in one of the heads of the RNC who will tell you how we won the election last time. I was on a Zoom meeting with him, and what I heard was unbelievable that everybody should know. So I invited him on there. We'll have some real key people there. We're going to have Maureen Bannon's going to be playing golf. Sam Sorbo, Hercules, is going to be playing golf and going to be speaking along with his wife. We've invited Steve Bannon. We haven't yet to get a response yet, but I will give him a call tomorrow or Monday, see if he can come. So I want to bring this up because it's going to be at 10 o'clock in the morning Eastern time to 1 o'clock Eastern time, and then all the speakers will be on national TV. Thanks very much. Our next speaker, Driena Sixto from Turning Point. Did you find her, Raj?
Yes, Driena, go ahead.
Hi, guys. Hey, Steve. Thank you guys so much for having me on. My name is Driena Sixto. I'm the Southeast Regional Manager for Turning Point Action. You probably know the organization headed by Charlie Kirk. Our sister organization is Turning Point USA, the 501c3. What we do at the C4 is a little bit different. Obviously, we are here to help Republicans win elections and to reform the Republican Party from the bottom up. Precinct strat. Well, we also have a precinct strategy, or we work very hand in hand with Steve, and we absolutely think that the way to make the Republican Party truly represent our values is by filling PC slots all over the country that are currently empty with true Republicans instead of rhinos. That way, leadership reflects our values as well. And thankfully, we've already seen in the last year or so that has been happening, that finally the Republican Party is leaning more right as we've wanted it to for many, many years. So since it is an off year, right, technically, it's not an election cycle year, although there's always going to be local elections happening. We want to make sure that people just are not sitting around and sitting on their hands. Now is the opportunity to be recruiting, to be training people, to be filling in those PC positions. Our weapon of choice for this last cycle was our Turning Point Action application. I'm sure some of you guys here have it. I think every single Republican should have the TP Action app downloaded on their phones. I have the website, my name there, tpaction.com/app. If you go there, you'll be able to find the application. Download it to your phones. Right now, they're doing some tune-ups. So I was told that by next week, it'll be active. If you already have the application, it's still working as normal. What this application allows people to do is door knock locally. It's geolocation based. So it'll tell you, no matter where you're standing, who your 15 closest Republicans are. So you can know who your 15 closest Republican neighbors are, right? So we are moving into a relational organizing model, which the left has done very well over many, many years. And that's what we need to do as well. We need to be the CEOs of our own neighborhoods. A lot of us are activists in the political space, but we don't even know who our closest Republican neighbors are, and they don't know who we are. I think we should start there. And if absolutely everybody made themselves responsible for only owning their street, that is absolutely going to make a difference. So with the application, you can obviously physically see who lives by you that is a Republican. You can door knock, you can make phone calls straight from the app, you can send text messages straight from the app. Now, what are we doing on this non-election year? Last year, we obviously put together super chase events. So like a super Saturday, but instead of just on Saturdays, it would be all day, every single day of the week, multiple events throughout our key states. What we're doing now is we have Turning Point Action coalitions. So our coalitions, we have a Moms Coalition, Healthy Americans Coalition, Latino Americans Coalition, Black Americans Coalition. Our purpose is to turn out low propensity votes, low propensity Republican voters, right? At this point, the line in the sand has been drawn, and we don't really need to convince people from the other side to come to our side. I think if you have two good neurons, you would probably be on our side. And so we just need our own people to turn out to vote. And you would be surprised at how many people around the country have Trump flags outside, but then may forget to actually go vote, or may not vote in a primary election or a local election, a special election. That's really incredibly important as well. So this is going to, so our coalitions department, excuse me, I'm a little sick. I got something over the weekend. My sister is making my immune system a little bit stronger. So yeah, coalitions are basically clubs where we want people to become friends with other people's. We want conservative moms making friends with conservative moms. We are funding these events and we are funding these coalitions. So if they want to have a mom's Galentine's Day event where they might write little Valentine's Day notes to their Republican neighbors and want to have like snacks and all of that, we cover all of those expenses. So we are keeping these social clubs active throughout the year so that they now have a group of friends to become politically activated with, and so that throughout the year they learn how to use the Turning Point Action app on their phones. So it's both a mix of fun and obviously learning. So that is what I'm going to paint over here. I'm going to change my username. We bought the website coalitions.com. So all of you guys can go to coalitions.com and you will see all the information on our Turning Point Action coalitions. You can sign up online as well, and somebody from our staff will reach out to you on how to get involved. Maybe you can start a coalition, maybe you can join one nearby you. But that is basically what we're doing. We are recruiting people, we are getting them plugged into a coalition, we are asking them, hey, are you a PC yet? No? Okay, well, do you want to become one? Here's what it is, here's why it matters, and help them with the process of becoming a PC. We are doing absolutely everything we can to make sure that when it's go time, people are ready, they are trained, and they are enthusiastic about it as well. Any questions?
No questions. Thank you very much, Jen.
Okay, thank you so much for having me, Steve.
You got it.
I'll put my contact info in the chat as well.
You got it. Okay, so if anybody wants to reach out that's listening or wants any of the numbers of the people that are speaking, go to stern1054@gmail.com. Send me a note. We answer everybody within a couple of days. And it's very important. So stern1054@gmail.com. I'll put it up again later. We'll give you everybody's number. Any input, anything anybody wants to get on or who wants to get on, please email me. Next person is a good friend of mine. He and I have worked together over here the last couple of weeks. John Goodman, I got to tell you, he is a guy who never gives up. He's like me. So he has been doing tremendous on X. He's helped me out quite a bit, learning how to get more people on X. And that's a very important thing today because you can spread the word. He has done a wonderful job on bringing this information to Fox and other people. And that's the most important thing. John, lead the way.
Thank you very much, Steve. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. So how I got involved in election integrity, I'm actually homeschooled myself in political science. I graduated from University of Louisville in business administration, but I've always been interested in politics. And over the last 4 decades, I've homeschooled myself. And I really started turning it up. What really was a trigger point for me, if you recall, in 2016, you remember the debate where Hillary Clinton was given the questions in advance of the debate. And then that snowballed into the phony impeachments and all of that. And I said, you know what? I'm going to get more involved, even though I've always been interested in elections and making sure that they had integrity and were fair. So in 2020, I was lucky enough to snapshot a few pictures off of CNN that showed some irregularities in voting. And won't take the time now to go through that, but I will talk to people about that one-on-one, and Steve knows all about that, and so does Raj. So that's how I ended up on the election integrity team, because of those pictures that I was lucky enough to snap off CNN November 3rd and 4th, 2020 during that election. The 2 areas I focus on: mail-in ballots and the weaponization of our judicial system. So I'll start with mail-in ballots. And Raj, if you have that slide, would you be kind enough to put it up on the screen, maybe a half screen or something like that?
Yes, absolutely. And you would
appreciate
like
that.
the map shown
The
first?
map. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Raj. Thank
So
you,
here we
Raj.
go.
So if everyone recalls, mail-in ballots was operated as a one-time deal in 2020 because of the pandemic. It was before that, it was, remember, absentee vote? Well, that's a dinosaur now, right? Absentee vote. It's gone. It's like never existed. And it was replaced with mail-in ballots. But the problem is there's been no legislation or a constitutional amendment making mail-in ballots a part of our voting system. Now, states have allowed absentee ballots for many, many years. So let's not convolute the two together. Mail-in ballots is not the same as absentee vote. With absentee vote, there was criteria. Hospice, elderly, overseas military. There was, as Deb Monks knows, there was a list of 15 to 20. Some states were more liberal than others, but there were still guardrails. Even in California, it wasn't a free-for-all. They were more liberal on the criteria to get a ballot to send in, but it wasn't just a free-for-all. Now it is, with no legislation. So I've gone to X to build an infrastructure, but different type of operation on X. Number one, my email is on my profile page, and I'm hearing from people sending me direct messages to my personal email. That is unusual, but that's what it takes. Number two, whenever somebody follows me, they get a response from me thanking them. And whenever somebody reposts me, they get a response from me. Everybody. In other words, it's not just post a video about election integrity and then head to the back porch to lie in the sun. You've got to connect with the people. So I'm taking X to a next level. And the reposting is really what counts, because I had a person who followed me that had 71,000 followers. And me and him are pretty clubby right now. And one of his followers happens to be Eric Trump. So he reposted one of my videos titled "The Republican Media Missing in Action." And he liked it, or hit the like button or whatever. And all of a sudden, my videos are blowing up and my phone's blowing up all over the place. Now, the bottom line with mail-in ballots, if we don't take action, we're going to have a repeat in the midterms and in the general election in 2028. So Deb is trying hard with House Bill 1669 to get it back to more of an absentee ballot type voting system and cut out the free-for-all, which we know there was 4 million fraudulent votes in 2020 since they cleaned up the voter rolls. 4 million. So that's got to stop. And the other reason why I'm dealing with the grassroots, your neighbor, the construction worker. The other reason I'm dealing with the grassroots, not the name brand national people for the most part, is because they're the ones that decide at the end of the day. For instance, I personally believe that mail-in ballots is going to be challenged, and it's going to end up in the Supreme Court, and they're going to do exactly what they did with abortion. They're going to make it a state by state. Does your state want mail-in ballots, or does your state want everyone except absentee people to have to go in person? So that's the important part. And I got all over the national media about it. Mayor Trump saw my video, and all of a sudden I start hearing from Fox TV anchors, several giving me their cell phone numbers. One of them called me. I'm not going to mention his name. Steve has spoken with him also, because I went to a certain point and then I turned him over to Steve, because I'm not trying to grandstand. I want results of fair elections. So now we have Fox starting to be aware, and they should have already been aware. I mean, let's be honest. A national network doesn't know anything about how mail-in ballots became part of our voting system with no laws or legislation after 200 years of a voting system. And our elected officials are not asking how did this happen? And the media's not asking the elected officials. How did mail-in ballots become part of the fabric with no legislation? So now we're hoping that there's going to start to be a focus saying to the legislators, hey, how is your state mail-in ballots when there was never any laws passed? A few states have said, well, we just passed it on our state at the state house. But we all know that state law does not supersede federal law or the Constitution. So that's not an answer. So the media is now starting to get involved, and I'm building a network of people who will ultimately, I believe, decide the fate of mail-in ballots. You've got to network X. You can't just post and run. And that's why it's being effective. And I'll refer to Dr. Frank. That's the infrastructure and the foresight, because those construction workers and those nurses and those people that nobody's ever heard of are the ones that actually are going to decide. The other area that I work on is the weaponization of our judicial system. And Raj, could you put up that letter that I sent to Governor Kathy Hochul of
Yes,
New
I
York
can.
State? Thank
Yes,
you.
I can. Stand by. Okay, there
Governor
it is.
There we go. And I sent this to Governor Kathy Hochul of New York State. And we listen and hear people say, yeah, that was a fake trial, that New York City trial. Well, how about if we be more specific about it? What did Judge Rashan do that made it a fake, phony trial? Well, number one, he violated Section 14, which is New York's bias law. He has been an outspoken hater of Donald Trump for years in his first term. So he was ineligible based on the bias law to even be on the Trump case. He also violated New York law, judicial law 100.5, because he's donated money to Democrat organizations and to Joe Biden's campaign. That made him ineligible.
2 minutes, John. 2 minutes, John.
Okay, I'm telling Kathy Hochul this. And so the bottom line is the one-sided gag order, unconstitutional. That alone should have the case gone. Remember, Stormy Daniels, Michael Cohen, they were on every talk show in the country. Donald Trump couldn't say one word. Come on, that's unconstitutional. It's either gagged or it's not gagged. So I sent this letter on February 8th. And then yesterday we found out Pam Bondi is charging the governor for not conforming to immigration law, keeping New York City a sanctuary city. So now I've sent AG Bondi a letter, and I quickly am going to read it. It's very short and it's very to the point. And listen to this. Now that the governor is facing charges on immigration, I said to Pam Bondi, "Dear AG Bondi, this is a letter I sent several days ago to Governor Hochul. You could see I sent it before you filed charges against her for immigration. After reading my letter, this would be a perfect plea deal situation with the governor. If she agrees to start following immigration laws and to throw out the unjustified convictions of Donald Trump, then you won't charge her. And it's a plea deal. It's a legal plea deal. And the bottom line is Donald Trump could pardon himself, but he doesn't want to lower his standards to the Joe Biden pardon routine.
30
But
seconds.
the governor of New York could throw out those charges because it happened in her state. So it's getting a lot of play. We're trying to see if they want to make a deal. DOJ gets a sanctuary city gone, and Donald Trump, the wrongs against him are righted. It's a win-win situation. Nobody thought of it. And I'm trying to see if Pam Bondi would go along with it. And the governor has really been done not to, because during the appeal, it's going to come out anyway. Here's how you reach me. Is that backwards or can that be seen?
Lift it up a little bit, please, John. Lift it up a little bit higher. There you go. And
If you see that, And
Look,
John
Too
Goo.
close to the camera. Too close to the camera. Just move. There you go. Perfect. Perfect. Hold it right there.
And you can see I've got videos on there, one called Mail-in Ballots, The Elephant in the Room. Another one I told you about, the Republican media missing in action. There's another video on there that shows how the 10-year pardons from Joe Biden were connected to the pay for play with Hunter and him when he was vice president. All facts, researched. I read the transcript to the Trump trial at nycourts.gov. I don't post unless it's researched and factual. It's the only way to build up credibility, reposting, keep your followers,
Thank you, John.
and make an impression that lasts. And I thank you so much for your time today on this important election integrity call.
Thank you, John. I wish we had more time. You have so much good stuff. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Steve, you want to go to our next speaker, Colonel Shindelar? Go ahead, Steve.
All right, so Colonel Timothy Szynkowicz, you're up. He works very closely with Greg Stenstrom, so I'm not sure if Greg is coming along with him, but let's see, do you have him there?
I
Yeah,
have James. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Can you hear me okay?
I can see you and I can hear you very well. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, you up there, Greg, or?
I'm here, but I'm gonna let you speak. So
Yes, thanks.
I'll come
Thanks.
on at 4.
All right, thanks, Steve. Appreciate the let me speak. I am not an election integrity guy. What I am is I'm a government integrity guy, and meaning that we focus specifically on what constructs are and then how the constructs have been captured, and what everybody now knows and calls the deep state. Back in late 2015 and early 2016, when we were doing our original work, we referred to that as construct capture, which is exactly what it was. And people now understand that several of our government institutions and entities have indeed been captured. In other words, they've set up an alternative governance construct, which is true. And that construct is run by an organization called the Council of the Inspectors General on Integrity and Efficiency, which has been established by Congress. It's an independent entity. It's a sui generis entity, means that it has no oversight. It's not controlled by anyone. And that the members of that council actually dictate and set policy. It's in every bureau, every board, every commission, and every agency in the country. And it gives them the ability to ensure what will and will not be audited, what will and will not be investigated. And what we discovered early in 2017 was that this was an actual federal level organized effort to subvert the federal investigative process. And by subverting the federal investigative process, there would be no way that anybody could build evidentiary base, which would be necessary for prosecutions. And that the litmus test that we started with in early 2017 and 2018, of course, was how come nobody ever gets prosecuted? How come nobody ever investigates? And what we discover now, as you're seeing now, is even though we have another governance construct, which is now under the control of Donald Trump, we see that for some odd reason, there seems to be great concern with the appointment of a senior federal investigator, the director of the FBI, because the director of the FBI actually conducts the federal investigations, which are then sent to all the different U.S. attorneys, all 94 of them across the nation, for prosecutions. So you can see how important that particular job is. And right now, if you're watching the news, you can see that there's a lot of angst, both Republican and Democrat, over who's going to be running the federal investigative process, which is the core driver to get us into the Department of Justice and to all 94 U.S. attorneys across the country for prosecutions. This is at the federal level. And then again, it goes into the state level. We've already filed multiple disclosures, starting as early as 2016, where we identified names, dates, places, and violations of federal law. And we anticipate that several of those cases are going to be brought forward. That was our mandate. And the remit for us, of course, was to ensure that they were properly constructed. And if you can talk to Greg, we did some cases. We saw what was going on in Pennsylvania, specifically Delaware County, And we recognized right away that they were obstructing both the vote, they were obstructing the investigations, they were obstructing the audits, and that it was a collaborative interagency effort at both the local, state, and federal level. And Steve asked me to speak on this, so just want you to understand that everyone is right, and everybody's natural inclination that there is something wrong is actually correct. And this is what we call progressive social reconstruction, if I put my academic hat on. And progressive social reconstruction is a process in which we actually capture the rules-making sections of organizations. So if an organization has 50,000 people, I only need 1 or 2 people to run the organization. I set it as an alternative. So it has its daily working, and then it has its actual working. And this is exactly what we've experienced. And that's about all I have. Greg?
All right,
Take-
thank you very much. See if Raj, see if Nate Cain is on there. If not,
Nate Cain is on. Go ahead, Nate. You're up. Go ahead, Nate.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. Today, I'm here representing a wonderful organization that was founded in 2023, Citizens for West Virginia Election Integrity. And it's a volunteer-driven organization. And we're seeking to improve public trust by advocating for legislative actions that ensure our votes are legally cast, transparently and accurately counted, and fully auditable. And I think that's really, that last one, of course, is extremely important. We're collaborating with state election officials and lawmakers, and we're committed to making West Virginia a national leader in election transparency and fairness. I noticed that my great governor, Patrick Morrissey, is on today as well, which is great. So hopefully he'll see some of the good things that we're doing. We've been working with our local officials at the county level, as well as with the Secretary of State and with our legislators. And I think that's really the key, is trying to find a working relationship with these folks. I'm fortunate that I live in a state that is a primarily red state. I think everybody in our state wants to see improvements in election integrity. And while a lot of people may not think that it's a big deal or that it's a problem here in West Virginia, the truth is, I think it's a problem everywhere, because there are things that people just don't see, and they may not think of West Virginia as being a place where there might be election integrity issues, but we do have some, and we've identified a list of vulnerabilities that we've provided to our Secretary of State and to our state legislators. Full transparency is really the key, and we're demanding transparency in our elections through a redesign of the process. We want citizens to feel that right now, our citizens don't feel that there's currently enough transparency in our elections, and we want to change that. We also think that a lot of that really plays into the voter registration, and so we've identified these things. One of the things that our leader of our organization, Ed Fisher, has done, which I think is really unique, and if you guys have state organizations, it's something I would definitely recommend that you do, would be to start a caucus, if you can, within your state legislature, so that you have something that you can utilize as a means of bringing these state legislators together. And so that's something that Ed has done, is he's created a election integrity caucus, and we are rapidly growing that and gaining members to that. And that, of course, gives us a means of being able to communicate with them and get them on board with some of these legislative changes. We've identified, like I said, a number of vulnerabilities, and we've put those together and talked to our Secretary of State's office, and have had multiple meetings with them and with our state legislators. Some of the reforms that we're asking for is, we want to see government issued photo ID required for in-person and absentee voting, citizenship verification, of course, for voters, citizen audits for their own vote. So like, I should be able to go online and see my vote. And I think that's something that other states are doing. We'd like to see that done here, and be able to see our cast ballot image online and compare it with a photo of the ballot that we've submitted in the precinct. Citizen audit of any precinct race. We want to allow any citizen to audit precinct vote totals against precinct cast ballot images. And I think that's key. Transparent tabulation. Right now, obviously, when we see our votes counted in these tabulators, I really don't believe that is, to me, that's a black hole. It's something that we can't see. And I don't believe that we need that. We do see that there is some need because of certain requirements, for allowing people to vote that are disabled. The DRE machines, we don't necessarily have a problem with that, because as long as you have a printout that they can verify, looks exactly as how they voted on the DRE, we're okay with that. But we want to see our state get rid of the tabulators and go to hand counting in the precincts. And I think that for a state our size, there's absolutely no reason why we would need tabulators. We also want to see the use of blue ballpoint pens for paper ballot marking and signatures, because of some of the things that we've seen in the past with problems with ballots that have been put through machines. And continued support for voters with disability, like I mentioned. So I do think that there is a place for some of these machines like the DREs. But we want to eliminate any possibility of hacking by bad actors, foreign or domestic. My background, of course, is in cybersecurity, so that's been something I've been concerned about. And one of the areas that a lot of people may not think about when they're thinking about election security when it comes to cyber is, of course, voter registration. And regardless of what anybody says about whether these electronic voting machines are connected to the internet or not, the fact is that the voter registration most certainly is connected to the internet in almost every state, and as well as the poll books and things like that. So we want to see robust changes to the cybersecurity in those in that regard. And so those are some of the things that we're pushing for, and I think they're good things. The biggest thing, and I'll try to keep it as brief as possible, that I think that has been a game changer here in West Virginia has been the working together with our Secretary of State and with our legislators, and the formation, like I said, of a caucus to make this an issue within our state legislature. And I think that has been a very successful thing. The last thing that I want to mention, I just want to show a picture of something. Do I have the ability to share my screen? Yes, I do. Okay, so I want to pull something up here and just show this, because I wrote a Substack article a while back, and I thought this was right after the 2024 election, and I think it that saying, a picture's worth 1,000 words. I thought this was a very fitting picture to show just how how the election turned out, and then to show what different rules are in different states that to me are vulnerabilities. Are you guys able to see the screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, the maps,
Okay,
picture with a million
great.
votes.
Yep. So down here at the bottom, of course, you have the 2024 presidential election outcome. And then by state, what I've done is I've broken out some different things. So of course, party control of state legislatures matches very closely with the presidential election outcome. And that's something that, we got to keep in mind. So those down ballot races have a huge influence, because obviously they're going to decide on what the election laws are going to be in their states. So we can see, that lines up very closely. But another one was illegal immigrant driver's license. So this was an interesting thing that we discovered, was that driver's licenses in particular, you had remember that there was a time when Democrats didn't want illegals coming into America because they lowered the wages. And in fact, Cesar Chavez was a huge union guy that would take people down to the border, and they would whip these illegal aliens as they were coming across the border, sending them back. And what happened, though, which was interesting, is that the year he died, was the year that the Democrat Party began changing their position on this. And you had the first state that introduced a law in their state legislature to allow illegal immigrants to get driver's licenses. And now there are multiple states, as you can see, that allow for this. And what's interesting is that almost identically lines up with the election outcome. So I think there is no doubt that there are illegals that are, voting in elections. And even in those states that require an ID, how would you differentiate between somebody who is a U.S. citizen or who's not, just off the basis of their driver's license? And I think that's an important factor. And I think that's something, an area that we've got to focus on at the federal level and in our state levels to try to push for them to change their laws. But you also have the all-mail voting. You have felon voting rights, online voter registration, and I'll try to be as quick as I can here. Private financing of elections, like CTCL and other groups like that. Delayed ballot returns. You can see where the states that allow those. No voter ID requirements. So you have some states that don't require any voter ID at all. In fact, I heard stories in California, for example, of where people came in, they tried to show their ID and they were told, you cannot show us your ID. I don't understand what the reason for that. And I think any reasonable American would see that that's a problem. And then this other one was kind of interesting. There are states that that went red that allow for drop boxes. However, you'll notice that these states that are kind of a light red here, these are states that allow for drop boxes, but they have some level of surveillance. The states that are dark blue don't require any kind of surveillance on their drop boxes. And again, it lines up very closely with what you see in the outcome of the election. So I think that these are, kind of things that should be looked at a much closer level. Obviously, the federal government can legislate some of this. I think the Constitution, gives them power to be able to do that. But we got to focus at our state legislatures as well and try to work on these issues. And so anyways, I just wanted to share that. Folks can check out what we're doing. They can follow us online at C4WVEI. And we're on Twitter and on Facebook. And I would recommend that you guys check out what we're doing and follow us if you're not already.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation. You can go and stop sharing. Steve, our next two speakers are running behind schedule. Okay with you if Greg is ready for me to go to Greg, Steve? Greg is always ready, always
I'm
available.
here. I'm ready.
All right, Greg, you're up. Go ahead, please.
Good to see you, Raj. Thanks. Colonel Shindelar and I went to the Naval Academy together. We've been longtime friends, and if you want to further information, the intellectual capital, I learned from him, but I wrote an article on intelligencer.today, just do a search for the council and who's running the United States of America. And a lot of the material that Tim was only able to briefly cover, there's a little bit more detail there, and I hope Tim will be back, and he was going to be writing a more academic treatise in the near future on this subject. But I'm here today, and I'm reading today. Usually I have it up on the screen, but I'm reading from paper. We're building a sustainable and coordinated effort to restore election integrity by dismantling centralized partisanship control. It's been touched on multiple times in this meeting, but decentralization has been the key to protecting our elections. And it's the centralization of elections, which was started in 1974. I'll be covering that in the next meeting. But what it did is by centralizing election, it takes away our ability to audit and to get full transparency into our elections. So we're not interested in relitigating past elections. We're certainly going to get some answers with some of our lawsuits that are still pending, but our interest now is going forward. And what we're doing is we're using undeniable evidence of fraud to drive real reform, shape public opinion, compel government action. Tim referred to the disclosures that he's been working with. He's been working with myself, other election integrity advocates, some here on this call, and whistleblowers throughout the country for many years. And these things have been brought forward and provided to the Department of Justice, to the FBI, and to the inspectors generals, the attorney general, and the state attorney generals. So a lot of what's happening in our government right now is a direct result of Mr. Colonel Shindelar's work. And we are seeing, we're compelling government action, and we're shaping public opinion. Our next key objective is securing the 2025 and 2026 elections and ensuring they are lawful and free from manipulation. Massive election fraud continues to be a problem in the United States. And sometimes it could be the local level, state level, and even, at the national level. We're going to have a real problem in 2026 as the Democrats try to take back the House and make President Trump essentially have a 2-year presidency and then torture him like he did in this last administration for 2 years. So right now we have key legal and strategic activities that are ongoing. We have a U.S. Supreme Court case 24-430. The original writ basically demanded that federal agencies, in particular the DOJ, obey federal law and federal statutes and not use internal policy as a means to circumvent law. It's a mouthful, but basically, believe it or not, there is no Supreme Court case that says federal agencies have got to obey the law. Federal statutes cannot be subverted. Loper Bright, which is the overturn of Chevron deference, which was probably the closest we've got so far. So this SCOTUS case is an extension of that. The case was quashed by the clerks. Chief clerk for the Supreme Court is a gentleman named Scott Harris. It was quashed by another attorney who handled emergency motions. His name was Robert Meek. It was quashed and not investigated by the marshal for the Supreme Court, Gail Curley. And this is brought to the attention of Justices Alito and Thomas through Rule 22 and Rule 23 filings. Don't have time to cover what that is, but we filed a reconsideration noting the obstruction and the illegal acts of these clerks who tried to obstruct the case. And I expect Judge Alito and Judge Thomas will be able to review these cases, and we're going to get a different outcome this time. At the state and local level, we've won 2 defamation suits. Leah Hoops and myself were co-defendants with President Trump, among others, Rudy Giuliani. Leah and I handled most of the case pro se, and we won the case. It was discontinued with prejudice in favor of the defendants. We used truth as a complete defense to prove that there was massive election fraud, and we entered videos, audios, correspondence, testimony, and affidavits of that massive election fraud, which is now a matter of judicial and public record. We recently won a defamation suit in Delaware County that was brought against Newsmax, Margot Cleveland, Hogan Gidley, America First, Leah Hoops, and myself. We won that with a dismissal with prejudice because they could not even get past initial, past what they needed to do to even file the suit. Again, we used the truth as a complete defense. We're about to get a ruling, which I expect to be favorable, on a malicious prosecution case. Again, we use truth as a complete defense, and we continue to win with that. We have an important case. I'm looking at my time, and I know Karis Kocher and John Child are on the call. Karis is the lead plaintiff, and John Child is on the case with Leah Hoops and myself. And what we did is what they've been doing across the country, and specifically in Delaware County, is because of these centralized counting centers now, they're saying, hey, we don't need all these decentralized voting places in people's garages and, the Kiwanis Club or the local churches and nursing homes and so forth. We want to centralize everything. So we're going to consolidate districts. What they're doing is they're doing illegal gerrymandering and illegal redistricting, and they're doing it under the guise of administrative efficiency. In Delaware County, they spent $700,000 a year in 2019 for elections. This year, they're looking for $8 million. We've been spending anywhere between $4 to $8 million a year centralizing and improving the efficiency. So Karis is the lead plaintiff on this. She's been the driver. And what we're doing is they did not advertise the agenda. They tried to hide it. So that's what the main prong of the lawsuit is. But secondary to that prong, but no less important, is to stop the illegal redistricting. What you're going to find in your counties, and the people here are listening, is you're probably not even aware of it, but there is a systemic plan. This is a genuine, coordinated effort to redistrict precincts within the counties to be favorable to being able to shape outcomes and manipulate election outcomes. You're probably not even aware of it, but it's happening around the country, and they're trying to hide it. Might not even know what's going on. This case that Karis initiated and we're part of is very, very important because, number one, it will solidify the Sunshine Act and, demand government transparency, specifically with elections, and it will be a precedentiary case, which is why they're fighting it so hard. And the second thing is it will give prima facie evidence of their collusion and conspiracy to shape the elections with illegal gerrymandering. So very important case. I know John and Karis are here, and I wanted to cover that. A couple of other quick things. Liam Hoops and myself have initiated Dragon Anti lawsuits against the people who sued us for defamation and sued President Trump. We're going after the attorneys, we're going after the plaintiffs, and we're coming back at them. We're going, the other things we're doing right now is on patriot.online, www.patriot.online, which is I'm a co-founder of, and it's a social media platform and a privacy infrastructure. Big words, but if you go there, you'll see what it's all about. We've determined that we are able to use AI, the recent release of DeepSync, and we're pretty excited about it to be able to implement AI-driven election integrity applications and election integrity search engine. So one of the things we have there is a site called MIB, M-I-B, mail-in ballot DB database, mibdb.org, mibdb.org. We have 582,000 mail-in ballot envelopes, signatures, and the envelopes themselves in a database. People can look themselves up. They're from Delaware County. We also have quite a bit of information, the SURE databases, mail-in ballot applications, and so forth, that you can retrieve for your counties, at least in Pennsylvania. We hope to expand this around the country. So I'm going to wrap up here. And I want to start by saying a lot of people, especially the people here, have heard, well, the elections are over. We won. And why are we doing this anymore? Why are we contributing? Why am I wasting my time? And I know I'm speaking to the choir here for the people who are here, but for the people who are listening in on the War Room and in Twitter feeds, success is not an end state, but the progression of a worthy ideal. I'm going to say that again. Success is not an end state. It's the progression of a worthy ideal, and recovering our republic fully is a worthy ideal. I got that from Colonel Shindelar, give him due credit, and I was excited to hear it. But if you look at that and you look at the definitions of success, the first definition of success in that progression is securing the 2025 and 2026 elections. We've got to prevent fraud and election rigging. Almost everybody here today I've been listening to has stressed that, and we've got to be able to communicate that to the public, and this is why we're on the show. We've got to continue to gather judicial and legislative wins. Now, the legislatures in some places are capitulating due to strong efforts. I commend the people from Georgia that are on here, Utah, Nevada. I'm just in awe of some of the things that you've been able to do in those states. And I know some of you are here, some of the speakers here that are in other states, Connecticut, but Pennsylvania, we're doing our job here. And what we're doing is we're building judicial wins that we couldn't get 4 years ago when single-digit numbers thought there was no election fraud or they weren't sure. We're up over 80% now. The people here on this call did that. Everybody here had a huge part in changing the narrative that was shaped across this country by the mainstream media that there was no election fraud, that it was a big lie. This group here convinced 80% of the country that there was massive election fraud when everyone else was shutting us down. We brought the proof. We're winning cases. We're going to continue to win cases. And there's some big news coming out with some of the things that Leah Hoops and myself are doing. with the aid of a lot of good patriots who are helping us. A big thing that the three things that have to happen, and President Trump and Doge and Elon Musk are doing a wonderful job. Pam Bondi came out swinging. I think Kash Patel, once they confirm him, will come out swinging, is the accountability of corrupt actors. That's key. We've got to tell people that this isn't just about election integrity.
1 minute, Greg. 1 minute, Greg.
Thanks. It's about holding the bad actors who stole our elections accountable. Okay, that's part of the message. Forcing resignations, inflicting legal consequences, and exposing bad actors is critical. Colonel Shindelar exposed the bad actors of the council and the SIGI. I suggest you look up that article and pay attention to it. Two last things is grassroots mobilization and public awareness. The people on this call, the grassroots, primarily won the election for President Trump. And I say that with great veracity. It wasn't too big to rig. Anybody here who's a computer scientist or was doing their job, it had nothing to do with too big to rig. I'm a computer scientist, and I'll tell you, nothing's too big to rig if you're using computers. So the people's here efforts, you've got to keep your chins up, keep going. Don't worry about the recognition. It will come in time. Unity of effort and unity of command is essential. We've got to coordinate better. It's one of the reasons I love these calls with Steve Stern and Raj. I cannot thank you enough. I cannot thank the people here enough for what you've done. Again, I'll finish with success is not an end state. It's the progression of a worthy ideal. Recovering our republic and the conservative values that this group in particular I know hold is a worthy ideal. So join us, keep coming. The people who are listening that are not part of the call, the people listening on X and Twitter, join us in securing America's elections and ensuring free and a fair future. Thank you very much.
Glad, Greg. See if you can get Catherine Englebrecht up from True to Vote.
Say again?
No, thank you very much, Greg.
Okay, thanks. Love Kathy. Is she on next?
Checking.
Okay.
I don't see her on. I do see Joe Hoft is ready. I do
Go
not
ahead.
see. Okay, Joe. Joe, thanks for waiting. Joe, you're up.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here, Greg. I always love hearing what you have to say, so thanks so much. Real powerhouse there. Fantastic. Hey, I'm going to be real brief today. I've got a few key things to point out. I feel like one is, as Greg mentioned, I was at the last rally before President Trump became president for the second time here on that Sunday of January the 19th, and was real fortunate to be there. But Laura Trump came out and she spoke on the phone, and you know, she's I believe she's got a good heart and worked hard, I think, in her position helping out for the election. But she said that, hey, you know, we won. We all know that we won by a majority, and that that the American people now trust our elections. And when she said that, I was like, no, I just don't agree with that. Love you, appreciate all you've done, but I'm not buying that at all. And I give her a lot of, I guess, forgiveness, because I don't know what her background is, but I don't think it's anywhere close to mine or some of the other people on this call. So I'll just leave it at that. As far as her perception, I think that the election is absolutely in a horrible state. As a matter of fact, I'm terrified about going into a 2026 election with everything as it currently stands. So I think President Trump did run away with it. I think it was too big to rig at a presidential level, but as you can see across the country, the Senate and the House seats, many, I believe, were stolen, as well as, for example, local races. I've heard consistently across the country that mega candidates were beaten in these school district elections. And so there's something going on. These elections aren't free and fair, and we've got to get that fixed. So the fact that you're still doing this, Steve, and getting people out and in front of information like this is fantastic. A lot of work still to do, and a lot of work was done, but a tremendous amount of work still to do. One thing I was going to try to share this one piece. I'll see if I can do that. I hope you can see this. This is what's called what I ended up naming with some others on a team that we put together called Fate 2024, which was, we call this the Election Industrial Complex. We found this chart. It was advertised by this group called political technology industry landscape. That's what they called it. Higher Ground Labs is the name of the group. And what it does, and there's so much on here that you can't even see it, but it lists and shows all these various relationships between these various government entities, non-government entities, and corporations. And all these entities were well defined, put in place, and we've got an individual on our team with a military background. He says this looks like a fifth generation weapon system, where something goes wrong here, it'll be counteracted here. The whole system is almost like a living and breathing entity. And that's what we're up against. And we could talk about this for hours. And what's not on there, for example, what's not on this list is Dominion. What's not on this list is some of these other companies that we've come to know over the past 4 years that we never even heard of 5-6 years ago. So a lot going on that we have to attack. And it's hard for us, I think, to really then determine what it is we should be focusing on. So anyways, I wanted to share that just to that gives you a picture. This thing isn't small. I've written 3 books on the election in 2020, bestsellers. And what I tried to lay it all out in is what happened before the election, what happened in the election, what happened afterwards, the cover up. And as I look back at that, it was a pretty damn good job of trying to throw everything out there as far as what's going on. So this new information, which I believe I have in my 3rd book, this election industrial complex is huge. It's huge. It involves social media, and taking away the money through like USAID, et cetera, may really, really help us in this next election. But there's still a lot of money and people and entities behind this. And they're going to come after us with all they got to try to get Democrat Congress under President Trump as soon as they can. So there's that. I guess I wanted to mention some breaking news here, and then I'll be done. Today, I sent a letter to the registrar of voters in Orange County, California. We've reported on this show before how there's been some major issues in Orange County. That's where they have 6 U.S. House races. 5 of them went blue. It's a red county. You talk to anybody out there, and we wanted to figure out what's going on. None of the results there really seem to make a lot of sense. So I sent a letter to Mr. Page just a few minutes before I jumped on this show to share with him that put together a team. We believe we have the funding, and that we would be happy to come in and perform an independent audit of your operations related to the 2024 election. It'll be limited in scope. We're not going to grab a bunch of ballots, bring them over to a coliseum, and monkey around with them for months. It's going to be very targeted, strategic, and focused on 4 main areas. It'll be systems. We're going to look at chain of custody. We're going to look at the final results. And we also are going to look at the data reconciliations and the voter rolls. So very targeted. We've already believed that we've got a really good understanding of what's going on there. We think we could go in a week and be out, not cost him a lot of time, not cost him any money, and be able to give him an assessment from an independent and professional point of view of what's really going on in that county. 2 million or so ballots were sent out. 1.4 million were counted in Orange County. And like I said, 5 of the 6 U.S. House seats went blue, which doesn't seem to make sense. So that's on the table. I'm going to write about it soon. We're going to put it up at joehoft.com. We're going to share it across social media. We're going to try to get it up at Gateway Pundit as well. And something we're working on. We'll see what Mr. Page says. We're ready to come in and do a real audit, independent, with some super professionals, including myself. Many of you know I've done audits around the world. Here's my ending point maybe is this. When I did audits in China, communist China, I asked for information going in, and when I got there, or even before, that information was in my hand. Communist China was transparent with me in the audits that I performed there in my professional career. We don't even have the same luxury in our election process. So we need to get this all fixed. We got to get everything transparent. And one way to do that, I think, is to step in again, do a simple targeted very strategic audit with some great professionals, many that you may know, and then give an answer. And if everything's fine, that's great. That's what we all want to hear, and we'll report that. So anyways, have more on that in the future. Thanks, Steve, for having me on.
Could you give us a little bit of a background on Tina Peters and the lawsuit that was just filed, and just a little background where everybody can get the video that we had for 8 hours the other day?
Yeah, thanks, Steve, and thanks for asking about that. Real quick, Tina Peters, we had a show over the weekend on Saturday, about 7.5, 8 hours. A number of election integrity individuals were involved. I was myself, I was emceeing the event. We had a couple hiccups, but it went pretty well. And we shared the movies, both Tina's movie Selection Code, as well as David Clement's movie Let My People Go. You can go and see the video at numerous sites online at Rumble, but you can first go to letmytinago.us, and there's some information there about the presentation, what we shared, and the various topics and speakers from that day. I thought it went really well. We talked about strategy. She does have one legal strategy right now where she's focused on the supremacy clause in the federal Constitution, which brings the federal government in, which then hopefully we're hoping that people in the DOJ, this new DOJ, will get involved, and we got to get her out of that prison. She doesn't deserve to be there at all, as we all know. So some efforts there. We've talked to some key people too, and that I believe will be part of this new DOJ. And so we're hoping that in the future, very shortly, hopefully, we can get Tina Peters out of prison. She never should have been there. She was doing her job. The federal law states that she had to protect her information. She protected it, and the state came in, ignored all that, and charged her with bogus charges to put her in maximum penalties of 9 years in prison. It's unreal what we've seen there. It's just this, you guys, the further we get away from the Biden administration, the more we realize that it was a communist, fascist, messed up time period in American history, and we've got to fix it. And I agree with Greg. We've got to make everybody accountable for their actions when they committed crimes against the American people.
They just filed a habeas corpus this week too. So could you explain to everybody what that means?
I'm not probably the guy to share that, Steve. I really don't have a lot of expertise in that. Maybe one of the attorneys online can share more.
I think what it said was that she was charged incorrectly, and they were out of jail while they appeal.
Yeah, she should be, absolutely. So no crimes on her record, as you guys all know. Sweet lady.
Catherine Englebrecht, you're up. If you unmute yourself.
Thanks, Steve.
Great. Can you hear me, Steve?
We can, and you look beautiful.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for having me. And it was great to follow Greg and Joe and all the good things that they had to say, which I completely concur with. That 2026, we have 36 governors races up. It's going to be a wild one, not to mention everything else that's happening across. I think there's 33 Senate positions. There's hundreds of down ballot key races, and it's going to be a very different vibe than it was in 2024. We are going to need to rely upon, our own elbow grease, our own willingness to roll up our sleeves, and from the grassroots up, fight for those state and local positions, because it won't be a presidential year and all the fervor that comes with it. So preparing now is key. And I'll just share my screen real quick and show some things that we're working on. Let's see. First is some of you may be familiar with an app we have called. Let's see. Hopefully, you guys could see it. Called IV3.
We can see it.
Okay, great. So IV3 is a platform that allows you to register, and we will give you access to either your local voter rolls, or if you're running a state organization, you'll see your state voter rolls. And last year, 2024, we were helpful to volunteers in 2,600 counties file over 1 million challenges. Now, of course, the big question is, what happened to those challenges? Were they actually removed from the records? And that's where we're at right now, is peeling back the layers to see if what we thought we were successful in doing really left a mark, and we'll know that soon enough. Hang on a second, let me stop that. So ib3.us, we have about 30 states in so far with 2024 audit data. So we're wrapping that up, doing a look back to see how what we said was ready for challenge and went on to be submitted, what impact that did or didn't have. But more importantly, pretty soon the floodgates will be open for volunteers who want to come in and use the data that we have. So that's coming up soon. Back on the grassroots front and the need to hold tight for 2025, 2026, we're putting together a platform separate from True the Vote and branching off from a data platform that we work with called Ground Fusion. And you can look at this at groundfusion.ai. It's got a tremendous amount of data, pretty much the nation's voter files and all manner of augmented data on top of that. But the goal is to create what we're going to, right now the working title is community data grants, where grassroots groups can request and get access to data and the platforms and tools to use that data. We'll try to raise money separately because that's always the obstacle, is how to get paid, how to raise enough to buy tools that are at this or licensed tools that are at this level. So the hope is to do it in a way that affords everybody the opportunity to have top drawer data in play for the 2026 election. So that's another thing coming. And then the last new thing I can talk about is an app that will be launching soon called Legitrack. And it's been sort of a passion project of mine for a long time, with the goal being a at a glance look at all of the election integrity data that's moving through the various state houses, through the federal system, including departmental and agency sort of referential stuff. So, we're not going to pick up every single state election board, I imagine, but we're going to do our darndest to get everything in one place. Because when you really see it, of course, then it has to be broken down and you work in your respective areas. But when you really see the mosaic across the country and the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bills in play, it is a reminder that, the fight for election integrity never sleeps. As we often say, the battle was for the election, but the war is for the republic. And we are still very much in the middle of that war. So we hopefully introducing some of these things will give us all a platform from which to grow independent efforts. We all on this call understand that the real power is with the people. And we do have a great leader in Donald Trump, but it is the brute force and muscle of the grassroots that is given America back into what we're now calling another golden age. It's because of the work of all of you on this call. There's just no doubt about it. That's how this all happened. And we have to keep it up. So True the Vote will be introducing these new things coming out. Also, we've got a list of our top recommended reforms called The Way Forward. You can find that on our website. I won't bother you guys with all the latest of all of our lawsuits, but they're percolating right along. And we, true to form in our lawsuits, don't take a knee. So if you sue us, be prepared to take it all the way to trial and all the way to Supreme Court if necessary, because we're not going to back down. And that's playing out in a number of lawsuits right now. So be it. We'll steady on, and that's it. So a lot of exciting things coming up in the first quarter of 2025. And Steve and Raj, thanks for putting this together. Thanks for everybody who participates, and see you guys in the foxhole.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Now, every time we come on, we have one podcaster, because they are doing a lot of work in getting us all over the country. So today we have Jesse Hall on from Canada, and he has a big audience in Canada. So can we find him? Raj,
yes, Jesse, go ahead and unmute. You're on, Jesse. Go ahead and unmute. I see you're
there we
on.
go.
There you go. Great.
Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. I'm Jesse Howell, the investigative journalist and host and podcast host of the Missing Link Live. I appreciate you bringing us on here to be around all of you amazing people that are doing some good work when it comes to making things more fair for everybody.
So tell us what you're doing in Canada and, how you, what the people are doing there. I mean, it's a little bit tougher in Canada, right?
Yeah, so I've been kind of awake and aware to what's going on for 30 plus years. I've been rattling these cages, being called all kinds of names, trying to make people aware that things aren't, the way they are, shown to be. And for the last 4 years, when people were getting censored, we really felt we needed to get the voices give a voice to the voiceless. So we started a podcast called The Missing Link Live to share those voices. We've interviewed over 100 doctors that speak out against the medical tyranny. I know we've interviewed people about the election integrity. I actually went for the last federal election. I went to try to put my ring in the hat, and I joined one of the political parties. Part of their stance was to go against Islamic extremists. So they were painted as kind of a hate party. And I went into Wikipedia, changed everything, and then spent a few hours. And then all of a sudden, an hour later, it was all changed back to this is a hate group and all these kind of things. And I went back in there, changed it again. And it seemed no matter what I did, Wikipedia changed it and painted this political party in not a correct light. And I think that part of the election integrity is also, what's happening digitally, because they promote certain people, certain things in the algorithms. And then obviously other people, they can actually target them and paint them in bad picture, even though that's not the case. So here in Canada, they have the paper ballots, but they also have pre-election, which I don't really get any of that, because I surely think that, election day should be election day. Everybody votes on election day. They count things on election day. It seems like with these mail-in ballots and all these other things, it just opens the door for nefarious actors to come in and be able to change things. So I'd like it to get back to one day, one vote. You come out, you vote that day. That's going to be the people who get chosen.
Well, thank you very much for coming on from Canada. We're going to close it down. Raj, just to put up again, our next Zoom will not be until March the 3rd. And the reason is we're preparing for the largest election security meeting ever. What that means is we're going to have more people viewing, more people sending it out, where anybody who has any podcasters they want to share with us, we have a voice, and it's up to everybody on this call and everybody listening to share that voice. It takes me 8 hours a day to put one of these events on, because we have 3 events going on at one time, and the amount of help that I get is not big. So we have to get 50, 60 golfers, which we have about 50 already. We have stars that are going to be coming in to play. Gary Player's son is donating stuff. We have a lot of people donating things for this. Election security will be at 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock Eastern. I realize that it's tough for the people out west, but that's the way it has to be. And then at 1 o'clock, we'll be interviewing a lot of people out there. So hopefully we get everybody on. If there's any questions, let me know. Please sign up at Stern American Rumble or go to Stern American at X. We need more people to go on there. Get your book for Precinct Strategy. That's one of the most important things. Dan Schultz and I have worked on this for many times. I did 134 podcasts in the last 4 months promoting this and promoting Protect the Vote, which again, coming up on the election coming up. So Raj, you want to close it down with whatever you have?
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good. So thank you, friends. So as you can see on the screen in front of me or behind me, there's a QR code for the event that Steve Stern just talked about. So if you look over here, there's a QR code. You can take a picture of that. You can scan it. In addition to that, I'm posting a link right now in the Zoom chat I'd like you all to please save this and importantly share this on your social media with your email list. Why are we asking you to do that? Because that link takes you to this Republican Luncheon Golf competition. Again, all of this, why is Steve Stern working so hard on this event? For many reasons, including the fact that the money raised at this event is going to help the local candidates in his county. And it's going to be a lot of fun. The property is a Trump property, so it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Even more than that, you'll be connecting with people that you've seen on the Zoom calls, that have spoken on Zoom calls. So the networking is next, second to none. So please share that link that you talked about there. Steve showed his phone number earlier. I'm going to ask him to put his phone number again because for many of you, that is the easiest way for you to get tickets. You can either email him or phone him. If you're watching this through one of our podcasting partners and you'd like to get information on these calls as they come up, very, very easy. All you do is text the word elections to 91776, text the word elections to 91776, and that'll put you into our list so you can also get information about these calls. So Steve, thank you for you and your team. You got a big team over there also in your location, and there it is. Let me get Steve back on so that he can see. Oh, you can see that. All right, great. So Steve's got his sign right there. Please take advantage of that. Calls 954-318-6902, 954-318-6902, or email him at sstern1054@gmail.com, sstern1054@gmail.com. And lastly, if you haven't got your Valentine's gift, quickly move on it. It's tomorrow, guys. So make sure you take care of that and get a gift from theflagshirt.com. Get the gift from theflagshirt.com. Some of you guys just heard the most important thing on this call when I just said Valentine's Day tomorrow. So you're welcome. All right, my friends, have a good, Steve's got something. Go ahead, Steve.
Tell them about, you're going to be there at the event and what you're going to be doing. We're going to be streaming this live, the golf tournament. There's a hole-in-one. In the back, you see backswing. That is the LPGA that will be on one of the holes and is Challenge the Pro. And they are, all the money they get will go toward LPGA players that are coming up. So there's a lot of things going on at this event. And if you think it doesn't take a lot of effort to do this event, you have no idea. I wake up in the middle of the night talking about the event to myself because it is one of the most difficult things to do. So Raj is coming down to help us. He'll have a whole team down there. Raj, do you want to tell them about your Zoom that you have every week? See if anybody wants to come on that.
Yeah. So thank you, Steve. So we have another Zoom call that happens every Tuesday at 7 p.m. The purpose of that Zoom call is to take a lot of the stuff that you've heard on these calls. We have a Defend Florida call, which 80% of the people are from Florida, but we have 20% of the people coming from out of state. And what we do on those calls is we actually go over how we're implementing what you have heard on this call, implementing it. And so you can see the dynamics of how that's working right now. We have a situation in the state of Florida, and you all will probably be dealing with something like this in your location where we have, even within Republican ranks, two different factions trying to put forward what they're calling election integrity. Neither of them are actually doing an adequate job, but there's an opening there. How do we take advantage of that? How do we speak to legislators? How do you get appointed with legislators? How do you apply political pressure on those legislators? That is there. Also, we hope to have this ready actually on March 3rd. We have a new leadership syllabus that is being put together by many leaders. And so if you're interested in what it's going to take to up your game as a leader in this space, a leader in terms of being able to attract more people, a leader who's able to diffuse the inherent drama that seems to be part and parcel of what we end up doing, a leader that's able to get more people to increase your level of influence and political clout. We hope to be unveiling at least part of that on March 3rd. So that's something also to look forward to on the March 3rd event. If you're interested in the Tuesday call that I just mentioned every week, very, very easy to get involved with that. Just go to defendflorida.org. defendflorida.org. There's a link at the top of the homepage where you can get connected with that Tuesday call. So with that said, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you for the speakers, podcasters. Thank you very much for putting this show through. And again, if you're watching this on one of our podcasting partners and you'd like to get inside information quickly as things are happening, text the word elections to 91776. All right, my friends, have a great night, and we'll see you on March 3rd here in Florida. Bye for now.